Welcome everyone to Caster Calls ZombieGrub episode 39. I am here with LucyMae. You might recognize, I guess you've been following some of my Valorant stuff, but then you also might recognize from a variety of other esports actually. I tried to find a way to consolidate all the stuff that you've done, but I really couldn't. So I'm just gonna say
Oh,
variety esports, lots of different interests, doing lots of different things, streaming lots of different games. You've hosted, you've cast. It feels like you've done everything, as well as I guess some of like the big boy like industry, entertainment industry stuff as well. So I feel like I'm in the presence of like a fancy person. I don't know, but I've
nice.
I've really I remember looking at your demo reel the first time that I guess we kind of unofficially met to the Gallerants, and being like, damn, this is actually really good. This
Oh,
lady's a
thanks.
pro. So I really wanted to get you on for the podcast. So thank you so much for coming on in your off time. And I just would love to hear, how did you get into this industry? What is your career path? Where did it all begin? I guess as far as getting into video games and then into the entertainment industry.
Well, I came from the entertainment industry first. Um, yeah, it was an interesting route that I was living in LA, pursuing the acting dream and by way of modeling, and then met a boy and who's now my husband. And he, as an actor, would get invited to gaming events because back in the day, a lot of the events were very like celebrity centric, like driven. That was the marketing route, right? You didn't have the influencers just yet,
Mm.
and so he would always get invited because obviously gaming was his jam. He loved gaming, and so his PR knew that, and I would be the plus one to the events. So I'm like, yay, cool, this is fun because I love gaming too. Which, funnily enough, he really kind of got me into that a little bit more, and so it was just really fun. And through that process, was lucky enough to meet so many amazing people in the industry and develop those friendships. And over time, it was just like somebody had said, "Hey, have you thought about hosting?" I was like, "No," because I'm like, it's a whole different skill set. So it's like, I'm acting, I'm trying to act, right? The best you got from me out of me is like improv stuff. So I don't know what hosting is really all about. So I kind of pushed off for a while, and I don't know. It finally just was like, I love the space. Gaming is so fun. Fed me all the dopamine. And so it's like, well, let's do it all, I guess, together. Let's check it out. What's this hosting stuff? Let's do it. That's fine. I like talking about games and stuff. And if it gets me involved a little bit more, then yeah, let's do it. And that's how I started with on camera work for games. And it was super fun, right? Still very similar, comparable to just being on set, working with the crew, and so that was familiar and fun, and I loved it, and just I don't know, from there, it was just kind of like once you've met and, established certain relationships and are able to then show that your value and what you could maybe help in with brands or events, then and through those friendships and such as well, it just kind of worked out. It was just this perfect harmony of friends needing talent, and I'm like, okay, I can help you with that. Let's do this, and that's how the business has bloomed.
Yeah. So when did you get into? When was the year of this transition into gaming events?
Oh gosh, I think my first event was like 2012.
Okay. All right.
So
So way back.
yeah, way back, it was like um, for a PAX
Mm,
to host pre-recorded content, or like for Astro Gaming.
okay.
Uh, they're the ones that really kind of pushed me, not pushed in a bad way, but just kind of like, hey, I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. It was, through their encouragement that I gave it a shot, and I'll never forget uh, them giving me that nudge. And I mean, now I've been able to do so much fun stuff in this space. I'm always thankful and throw back to them that it's because of that and them that I got this far
Mm-hmm.
into
That's
gaming at all, right? So
Yeah. So you weren't really into gaming when you were younger, before all this.
not, I mean, a little bit, but not really. Um, I was into playing with my toys and, chasing boys and yeah. I was the only girl in the house, so it was, me and my brother were always outside and in the creek and catching frogs and snakes, and I hate spiders. Snakes are fine. Spiders are that's right. I end things. But yeah, it was just always like outdoors. I had a Great Dane growing up, so we had a lot of, take that big boy out, and we go to the ponds and catch bullfrogs, which grosses me out thinking about it now. I'm just like, but did it.
Hmm.
Bullfrogs, those suckers are huge,
Yeah,
man. Have you ever seen a bullfrog in person?
I have. Yes, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, they're massive.
Sounds like you lived out in the country, man.
Yeah, pretty much. I grew up in Kansas, so
Oh,
those
okay.
rural
There you go.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I used to catch crickets, and now somewhere along the lines, I started being afraid of crickets. Anything that could jump, and I was afraid it could jump on my hair because I had like a traumatic experience with a spider,
Oh, no.
jumping into my hair and not being able to get out. So I think that's where like the boundary of like bugs.
Mm,
Anyways,
no
um,
jumping bugs. Got it.
yeah. Let's see here. So you're coming in here from a very different perspective than almost anyone else I've
Yep.
talked to. So I have talked to some, I guess, like traditionally feminine women, I suppose, which is actually a little bit interesting. That's a little bit unique sometimes. A lot of the people that I talk to have very similar stories about being tomboys growing up, right? And only kind of realizing all the again typically feminine stuff a little bit later. I do have stories of people who grew up, but then they were still into video games at the same time, and they still got in through video games. You're probably the first one I've talked to who had this life growing up and then went into the entertainment industry and then got into video games. Because I've only ever talked to, I think, two other people who came from the entertainment industry into video games. Frankie and then a little bit of Rosa as a makeup artist. And one thing that was really interesting to hear about was their take basically on the video game ecosystem, or wherever you want to put it. You came in earlier than a lot of others, still. 2012 is pretty darn early.
Mm.
And so, what was your perception when you started getting these gigs, going to primarily video game based events and tournaments and all that? Because I've heard stories about how, like, no one knew industry terms, right? Like the idea of calling talent was only kind of coming in towards, it feels like, 2012. No idea, like, hair and makeup was involved, like all that type of stuff. So what was your perception coming in from the entertainment industry into the video game industry that was still kind of blossoming into a bit of the entertainment industry?
Mm. I mean, it's a mixed bag a bit because, like you had mentioned at the start, I worked predominantly with brands at the beginning. So these brands and their marketing teams, they had the bigger budgets to be able to. They knew what, for the most part, needed to be done to get the job done. Right, working with juggernauts like Xbox and Nvidia and what have you. And I think where some of the question marks started popping into my head where I was like, "Oh, okay, it's not such a seamless kind of understood things," was when I got more into esports. Like, the esports side of
Mm.
things felt definitely way more grassroots and, still coming up, and so that was more the surprising aspect for me, because I was fortunate enough to be able to just work on projects that, um, seemed, like everything was doing what they needed to do, and I was taken care of accordingly, and yeah.
I guess those bigger brands still have a lot of people, I guess, like coming in from those industries where they know how to market, they know what's required. And then it's esports that really feels, homegrown. I guess that makes sense to me. It felt like brands were always pushing the to an almost comical degree, the esports homegrown people would even kind of push back against these brands, right? Almost like it was selling out, like that whole issue. So that makes a ton of sense. So when did you first start getting into like esports, would you say?
I would say 2017 when I got brought on to Twitch's Broadcaster Royale
Mm.
event. It was, you're hosting, but you're kinda casting a little bit too, but not really, like, serious casting. It's just you're gonna be commentating over the gameplay, but it's just totally chill, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I've never done that, right? And even really officially desk hosting. Like, I've done hosting events, like that's even a whole different skill set as well, you know. And so the desk hosting aspect, it was a learning experience, and the commentating ish thing was through that event with Twitch. Learned a ton, super fun, and that is where I then started getting more into esports. It was the tournament side of gaming versus the marketing side of gaming. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know tournaments are also, you know, kind of a marketing situation, but you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like I worked on events where there were competitions going down. It was
Right.
just, you know, we're this is the brand and let's talk about it. And here's some guests to make it sound even cooler. So um so yeah, that would be the first start. And then just from there it was kind of strung along.
So about 5 years between starting off in like the gaming world and then getting into like the esports world. During those years, did you ever, look off to the side and see the esports events that are happening? Because PAX would
Oh
have,
yeah.
all the brands, but they also have some competition going on, like those type of events. Did you have any perception as to that? Did you just kind of like look at it and go like, oh, that's cool, and then kind of just brush it off, not really look into it? Were you coming here with zero knowledge, or just kind of you already dabbled a little bit?
I didn't see the esports side as something that I would work in.
Mm,
It was super fun, right? I had gone to tons of Call of Duty events, being in LA, you know, Activision's there, and a lot of the other devs and such, dev studios, and so got a lot of esports just spectator time in, and that was super fun. Always loved that, but I never saw myself like working in it, right?
mm,
Because that felt like, oh, that those people know Call of Duty so well and so inside out. And of course, that was a lot of ignorance as well, just being kind of like, I don't know, so I'm just not going to touch it, which isn't necessarily a, you know, very growth mindset. But I just was like, oh, they're doing their thing. And, you know, I'm doing my thing. It's not that. And this is awesome. It's super
mm.
fun. I actually, when I would see that, instead of thinking on the talent side, I would be more like, oh man, if only I could compete, that would be so cool. But no, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, a lot of people I think have the first like imaginings of like, oh, it'd be so cool to be the pro that walks up on stage and has the fans cheering for them and is actually good at the game. And then we realize that I guess we're just better at speaking than we are at playing. So you got into it a little bit in 2017. Does it kind of snowball from there, or is it still more of like you got to reach out to people, or did people start reaching out to you?
Yeah, I think from there it seemed I was fortunate enough to it's a real close knit community, you know, gaming, and if in its growing and growth and what have you, it's uh, reaching out to who's available, who can do this, and oh, we're looking for that or looking for this, and so through word of mouth, I was thrown into the bucket, if you will, of potential talent, and I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, cool, let's do this, you know, I'm down, and I what helped me was being in LA. These studios are in LA. And so again, like having worked with NGE at the time is who did the Twitch broadcaster Royale. And then I was able I built my repertoire, my relationship with them, I should say. And so if they had things going on and or people that worked within those teams also working on something else, and then they, you know, were able to bring my name into that project. And I think that is kind of how things started really going for me. I was really fortunate to have that
Hmm.
in support.
So, talking about your skill sets, I guess, so we'll rewind a little bit back to 2012. You're talking about how you weren't really, you're like, oh, this is really for me. Like maybe I can do like the improv thing. What was I guess, what was it like going into this? Was it like was it more seamless than you were expecting? Was it actually about as challenging as you were expecting to suddenly become a brand ambassador and someone who was up on stage hosting? Or did you figure that like, oh, actually all these improv classes I've taken, all these acting skills that I have actually really are conducive to this type of job?
I mean, what those skills helped me with was just my on-camera presence and comfortability, but it didn't prepare me just for the world. And hosting is a very specific. It's not you can't take acting classes and then be a host. I mean, I'm sure you guys can attest. You know, you've seen actors try to host shows and you're just like, just don't go back to acting. Um, and they do that for brand reasons, right? They do that for in the same vein that in games they bring on the big streamers or the big influencers to grab their numbers. And
Mm.
that's why, Brad Pitt will get picked for that, or so and so big name, for that film. And it's been interesting to see how, even though I was in the Hollywood ecosystem, now being in the gaming system and seeing, oh, they're actually very similar in how things function. And that's just me being, growing up too, and just not and getting wiser in my time. But it's like, oh wow, it's because Hollywood also is, it's very much, if you think about it, okay, the gaming stuff and how we know it works, that's how Hollywood works. They pitch their friends, they get together with their homies, and they come up with this idea. They do the thing, they hire who they want to hire, they audition for the rest of the persons to fill in for the project. Boom, you're going. And that was just me super generalizing it all. But so I already forgot what your question was. Oh yeah, yeah. What ADHD? But yeah, so it was, what was tough about it, the transition into gaming, was all the negativity that I received.
Mm.
I was just like, whoa. Like, I came from modeling, y'all. Like, you wanna talk about cattiness, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought, I mean, if anything, that prepared me for gaming, because that's cutthroat, but people still got along, because people were still, like, doing their thing and going along, and doing the things. But in gaming, people, like, purposefully punch you down. Like, it's just been incredible
Mm.
to see, and not in a good way, incredible. Like, very eye-opening, and just like, wow. So, then you feel even more isolated. So, I'm gonna get emotional here in a second. Pisces and ADHD, not a good combo. But anyways, yeah, that's about it.
That's a bit surprising. Are you talking about like fans or the industry veterans being
Oh, there it is. I was looking for this handle. This chair is amazing, by the way. But, I think everywhere.
really? Mm.
Mostly, yeah, I mean, it's fans. I've met some incredible people along the way, like, working on the marketing side, it's been awesome. But as soon as you cut over to the esports side, it's like, if I had to put it in a meme,
That's
just that. I was like,
interesting.
holy shit. Because I don't know, you can't, nothing is, you don't find an end product. I mean, unless you are grinding your own content. But when you're working on a project or tournament or what have you, there are multiple parties involved to make this happen, to make it successful. You are one piece of
Mm.
that. You are not alone to make that successful. And I don't, and to see that people don't get that even to today, that working together for the greater good is what is powerful, and not trying to break each other down in order to feel like you're better than somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I've just been unlucky and have found all of those parties, and I don't know.
Maybe. I was gonna say, I mean, you're definitely in a different type. You're kind of like you're in an adjacent type of esports like community than what I am, right? So I come from some StarCraft, which is like one of the originals. It's also very small now. Um, the cattiness and the backstabbing and the all the bad things that happen in esports, I've heard of them happening, and a lot of the time they're in esports that I've not been a part of, or they're a part of like new esports, and usually it kind of just like dissipates as people get weeded out, I suppose. So Heroes back in the day was originally very catty because everyone was kind of clamoring to be the next big esports content creator. And then other games came out, so they kind of dispersed, and Heroes became really chill. But I've you hear things in CS:GO. There's recent drama, in fact, with CS:GO and the casters.
No.
I don't know very much about Call of Duty. I want to interview some of those guys, but I don't know much about it. But it feels like, even though we're both in the esports world, you kind of are in this like different, like the almost FPS like adjacent that I'm just like not a part of. So I have no idea what the actual experience is like. Maybe you are unlucky. Maybe this is actually normal over there, which would be very sad to hear. I'm personally very sad to hear this because in my experience, it's usually been, at the very least, you can find a close-knit community. But do you think that this is, do you feel like it's because you're not coming from that homegrown gamer place that you're getting this hate, or is it actually just everywhere you look, everyone's kind of fighting each other to get over each other to get to that next step on the ladder?
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't wanna say it's about me per se,
Mm,
you know? I think it's already it's an issue in itself. I'm just an easy target,
mm,
um, being a woman, right, in
sure.
gaming,
Yeah.
coming non, like I didn't come up grinding casting to
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not like everyone has their perception on what makes somebody worth allowing them. That's the thing of gamers too, they gatekeep, right? They don't think they do. They're like, "We're inclusive. We like everybody. We love everyone. We don't discriminate. Did you just say something discriminatory? That's not okay." But they're doing it themselves. They don't even realize it.
Mm.
And it's over there like, "This is my space. Gaming's mine. Get out. No, I worked hard for this. I don't care if you worked hard in your own way. I don't know it and I don't care." Like people are
Mm.
just they just see it and they're like, "Ah." And me, it's like I've ever since I was a teenager have been in this kind of a mindset or a setting of competition, except I was actually judged for my physicality, things that I could not even change.
Mm.
And people are judging other people in gaming just for literally things that also are just frivolous. It's just a lot of chaos in my opinion, and it has a ways to go, which
Mm.
is why I always champion initiatives that like support women in gaming, for example, because women have had it tough. And it's like it's about time that this stops being seen as like women versus guys, blah blah blah. And like to finally the end goal to be like we're just all gamers. Why can't we all be gamers? What does it
You hope
matter?
so.
Like
Yeah.
color, gender, like who cares? We like to game. Find the people that you like to game with. You're in the same game. Hook up. I like this game too. Let's game. Who the heck cares what is behind the voice? Like but it's like as soon as they find that information out, it's whoa,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to treat you differently. Well, why?
Yeah.
Make fun of my gameplay. Don't make fun of me.
There's a there's history there, I think. Again, maybe it's just not one specific thing that is a problem, but I think it's very, almost a lie just to kind of skirt over this whole like woman in gaming thing, right? So you kind of have to talk about it, even if it's sometimes been done to death. But there's history here. There's many a moment in StarCraft's history, for instance, and again, back in like 2010 to about 2012, we were the esport,
Mhm.
where yeah, specifically women would get brought in to do like hosting and interviewing jobs, and the amount of vitriol they would receive because they were entertainment industry veterans, not esports veterans, because that didn't even really exist back then. But they didn't come up from grinding StarCraft. Was pretty insane. And
Yeah.
there's, the initial jealousy that even I would feel before I matured and whatnot. So I wouldn't say anything because I'm not a douchebag, but I'd always be like, "Ah, man, I really wish that like they'd get someone who was into gaming." But then eventually, like this kept on happening, and it just became like one of those things where it's like, yeah, what if instead of being douchebags, we kind of just accepted? We were just like, hey, awesome to see you part of this crew. Like, if you want to learn about StarCraft, if you want to game at any point, like hit me up. So that's what I started doing. But then kind of around the same time that we stopped being such a big deal, so we stopped getting entertainment, like industry veterans coming across. But it did perception. I think was always it's always still there. Where if you're especially a woman coming in, and then it's bad. But it is also I think a problem of everyone, especially for host roles that seems to be pervasive across the industry because as much as I can think of the woman getting the most hate, there are also examples of even like Golden Boy, right? Who's this amazing host, really great guy, going to a different game, and then because he wasn't there from the beginning, also getting hated on.
Yeah.
And that's, that it's an interesting conversation because, the question is, are there deserving is always a bit difficult to describe, but are there people who are in the scene who can do the same job or better? Is there? When it comes to Golden Boy, I feel like the answer is quite like it's almost no. Like Golden Boy is one of the standards that we've set
Yeah.
here for like tip top like skill. But people still will say like, well, he might be good, but he's not. He hasn't been playing Rainbow Six for 6 years, so
And you
I
just
don't
made my
know.
point. That's what I'm saying. It's like, oh, because he wasn't there grinding that game, he's not worthy to have that job. And that's what I'm talking about, that toxic, just
Yeah.
like negativity that doesn't need to be there, because you understand that that is how that whatever needs to be done to help the brand and the product will continue then to thrive, that brand and product. If you want to keep competing in Rainbow Six, if that's the word we're using right now, then that's what you do to keep that big. Because if you don't, if you want to keep it small, then it will stay small and it might eventually wither away, and then you won't have a game to
Yeah.
compete in. Like, I don't get why people don't see that and understand that there's, what's that saying where it's like, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
But people are like, no, I just want my boat to rise. Hmm. How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you make the ocean just like come up in this one spot? You don't. You just
Yeah.
don't.
It's I feel like again we're becoming more and more I guess a more a mature industry is kind of giving too much credit, but we're kind of moving away from homegrown esports where, you know, we've reached that point where the production team, like everyone working on a tournament, even if it's a specific esport tournament, everyone there is trying to make the best possible products, not just to appeal to the hardcore gamers that they already have, but then to appeal to a big, you know, community, which I think the most controversial, I guess, subject for this matter would be like the Dota 2 International recently, right? Where Frankie got brought
Oh,
in.
oh yeah.
And then she was, you know, I'm sure, you know, to a lot of the people working on the event, the idea was like, we'll bring in someone who has a lot of brand value coming in from other esports. She's very casual friendly, right? So she can just bring in people who aren't really used to Dota. That's what they've been doing with everyone, not just Frankie, by the way. So there was Day9, right? Machine even, Red Eye, but I guess Red Eye kind of like did a good job of like being a Dota, because they liked Red Eye, but the other guys, especially like Day9 and Frankie, they got a lot of hate. And all I could think of was that, like, as someone who's not really into Dota, they are
Same.
some of the reasons that I checked it out, because they were trying to be accessible. And I think that's something that the tournament organizers are going to be looking at, but then the community might hate it. And I think that's a very like that I would not it's such a difficult thing to talk about and figure out as well, as to like, where do you hit that, I guess, perfect, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for, perfect chemistry of finding someone who's like accessible but then also really appeals to the community, right? Because oftentimes they're not the same thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that would be ideal. I think everyone tries to go for that, but the pool of talent isn't as great as it, could be. And, I know that everyone's trying to also help and nurture that. I think that I don't like when people sit there and they complain about, say, this, right? Frankie, they are so damn lucky that they had a host like that,
Mm-hmm.
or Frankie, period, on their brand, the community, that it's like, if you can do it better, then do it better. Quit crying about it. Do something about it. No one's doing anything about it. You're not finding somebody endemic to fill that whatever everyone wants. So someone's always going to complain. You put out the hottest film out, there's going to be people complaining. No film. I mean, maybe there's some, but I don't know what they are. But rarely any film is getting 100% across the board. They're going to be complainers. But with gaming, we're already on the internet, and so that seems and it feels very loud. But you don't see filmmakers being like, oh man, those 5% that are screaming right now, we should need to make a different film for them. We shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know. I think that everyone seems to be doing what they need to be doing with, as far as brands. I can't even act like I know what that looks like to do for publishers, but I just hope that they're not listening. There's a fine line to listening to feedback, what that feedback is, and trying to help out the community and grow, right? But just saying like, we don't like Frankie, like, that doesn't seem like it's really helpful feedback. And I'm sure she did a great job for the brand. It was just people that are uncomfortable seeing somebody new,
Yeah.
and that's not a valid feedback. Just saying like, oh, I mean, she did a good job, but she made me uncomfortable because I don't know her. Like, hello?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, people don't get it.
So to bring it, I guess, more like microscopic and talk about what we can do to improve such things, right? When you go into a new esport, or you're talking to brand ambassadors, you're talking to anyone, right? And they're like, we want to hire you. Do you always set like a kind of communication up to speak about these certain things? Like, are you asking them, what do you expect from me? Like, what is the vision of what you want here? Or are they usually very clear cut about like, here's what we want. We want you to be this type of person or that type of person.
Are you meaning me, like, for
Yeah,
as a
you.
brand
Yeah, you
ambassador?
specifically.
Honestly, I haven't really gone that route, to be
Mm,
honest. So, um, I've definitely been approached a few times about certain things, and uh, I have to, for me personally, love the product. I won't endorse brands that I feel are not good for you, and there are a lot of those out there. But so I might not be the person to ask for that. But yeah, I think that would be a smart thing to ask. I think for if you're an ambassador person, but I don't think a brand has ever asked, like, "We need you to be like this." It's
right.
just, "Hey, will you talk about this?"
Well, even as a host, have you ever
Yeah.
gotten any direction from the tournament organizer, from your producer, whoever, saying that we want you to make this like a very funny panel. We want you to be really serious. We want you to really just like ask these analysts hardcore questions or any type of direction. Because I think that, what we're talking about with Dota and all that is that there is some type of direction that these people are trying to think of. Like we want to appeal to more people or we want to appeal to a very hardcore people. And then perfect balance would be lovely, but it's impossible. You as a host, have you ever experienced any type of direction here, or has it always been just like, oh, LucyMae, do what you want, do what you're great, go ahead.
In Yeah, with big broadcasts, yes. Those
Mm,
teams know what they want, and they'll give that direction. If they don't, and, for anybody else that could be watching that are also talent, it is in your best interest to ask for that
mm,
initially, and I'd say more times than, or more times people don't give you tell you how it should go. I always ask, "What's the vibe? What are you going for?" I am My energy is through the roof. I need to know if you want it up there or do you want it down here or do I need to keep it super profesh? So that's why I guess for me I also ask. But it is also important for everybody. I think that's a good tip to definitely take and ask production because also sometimes they don't even know.
all right.
And that's partly too why you get hired is just because they do like what you do. And I have heard that. I was like, "Oh, just do you. Do what you do." Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that means because you can either get Lucy May times 100 or you can get Lucy May times 10. You gotta pick one because 'cause they're very different. Um, but yeah, but definitely on the bigger projects, it'll be a little bit more detailed on like you said, we want to appeal to the casuals, don't need to go, "You're not the expert, don't worry about things, blah, 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 so don't this and that," which is very interesting too, because a lot of the viewers don't get that aspect as a desk host. We are, as a desk host, supposed to drive the conversation, get the conversations going with the people that know what they're talking about that stuff. And since the desk host doesn't necessarily speak too much to it because we're not supposed to, the viewers are like, "Ah, they don't even know what they're talking about.
All right.
Do
Yeah.
they even play the game?" Like, I had
Yes.
over 3,000 hours on PUBG, and I did people questioning my knowledge on that game. I'm like, "You seriously? I'll meet you over at boot camp if you really wanna go there." But anyways,
Yeah. It's
'cause I'm a woman.
it's the thing I think that a lot of people don't recognize about specifically desk hosts. Yes. But even to a degree, sometimes commentating, like the play-by-play commentator, if you're setting up very distinguished roles, can also be a little bit of that driving force more than the here's all my knowledge, guys. Really respect me. But
Yeah,
in
and
this,
the hybrid pairs really make the viewer confused too, because it's like, "Well, we heard this caster say stuff too." So then, I don't know, people I guess just need to learn the viewers need to understand there's 3 different ways of casting
yeah.
and that not everyone's gonna cast the same.
Right, yes. But in the same vein of what we were talking about, kind of appealing to the community, appealing to the fan base, appealing to everyone, um, what do you, how do you balance that out personally? How do you balance making sure that you are, or do you balance it, that you are speaking to the tournament organizers and knowing what they want and what they want you to do versus appealing to the community so that the community has like a rallying cry of like, yeah, bring LucyMae back. She was great. Do you balance it or are you just like, yeah, I can't be bothered with the community because so often they don't really know what they want, which is often true.
I love this question because I've always been confused myself, like, coming from entertainment, right? Your job is to listen to your people hiring you.
Hmm.
The Twitch chat doesn't hire me, and so I came into this into the space doing that, right? I listen to my superiors. I listen to production. What my producer says or director says, that is what it should go down. Execs, what they say, that goes down. They're the ones that are funding your paycheck. You want to make them happy. And when you do that, if whatever the community says doesn't, you know, you did what you needed to do, it's not a reflection to your superiors. Now, and so in doing that, though, I did notice that my peers would very much care so passionately about what the chat would say or Reddit or what have you. And that was new to me. I'm just like, I didn't get that for a while. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that to yourself? You know, like that go, and for me, and my ADHD brain be like, not want to see that. I would crumble on broadcast. Like, uh, so I don't even look at that stuff, especially while I'm live. Like,
Mm.
whoo, um, it's the brain, man. I'm super into neuroscience now. Like, whoop, but that's definitely not good for you. So I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out. Like, oh, do I need to care more? Because yeah, like you said, they don't even really know what they're wanting. I They have a uh, a conception of like who they think they want to see, but then that's not fair to me, right? Because you can't just go, let's formulate this person on broadcast. We've made them and they will now speak to us. I'm so happy. Everyone's different. We're all unique. And so that almost speaks to the fact that people aren't really understanding of that aspect, right, of each other, and that's concerning. But yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing I've probably taken into consideration with the viewers nowadays is if the production side does say or to do things. I am now been around long enough to say, "Are you sure you want me to do that?" Because I don't know if
Mm.
if they're gonna like that. Um, so now I can speak a little bit more on their behalf, the viewers, if you will. But then the final say still goes to my producers. You know, I have to do what they say. Um, we are, because we're working together to make this broadcast happen, and you can't be going rogue on your crew. So, and I see people do that sometimes too, and it's just like, I mean, to each their own. But I guess that would be the only way that I probably melded in what the viewers may want. And I guess even more so, it would just either be if I happen to be endemic to that game to know, or just endemic to just the production side of stuff and thinking,
Mhm.
say maybe this would be better. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's chat off, do what you're told.
Yeah, I definitely think chat off while you're working is the best course of action. It is interesting. I just thought about this, but the chat does seem to kind of want an amalgamation of everything that they want, right? So it's like a million different voices trying to tell you to
Yeah.
be this one thing, and it is impossible. But when you talk to, a producer or someone, you're gonna actually have like a more one-on-one. They're gonna look at you as a person and be like, hey, could you kind of change this way or kind of change that way, as opposed to just like pushing all these qualities into you. So it just keeps you sane to actually have that direction, and that's actually a nice thing that is missing, I think, from a lot of esports productions. Is a producer actually knows what they want.
Yeah.
So often they can say, like in our community, for instance, StarCraft, like we've been around for so long, they can be like, do what you do because you know what you're doing, and it's like fair enough. But there's new games, there's new productions, new tournaments coming up all the time, and sometimes having someone that's like, hey, you're doing this and that's what we want, is so much nicer, than trying to follow the track of the community.
Oh yeah,
But
you'll go nuts because you'll be like pulled so many different directions. Like, wait, but you said
yeah.
to do this. Oh wait, that's not working. Do this. Ah, ah, and you just go crazy, and people will do it. They'll cater to the viewer. Like really, really strive for that approval, and it's.
Hmm.
I'm like, I feel bad for them.
It is tough though,
You
right?
know,
Because
yeah,
I think there's some communities, depending on where your position is, I suppose, in esports. So I think host can be definitely seen as more, they can kind of do a lot of things. Host roles are a bit more generalized than, say, an analyst role, right?
yeah,
But yeah, it can be hard to balance, because I think if you are an analyst, that is the role that is most dedicated to a game, that has to be very into just one specific game, then it feels like you have to be you have to listen to the community because that is the one thing that you're going to be doing for a while. And if they start to turn on you, then it feels bad. But then if you're maybe a little bit more flexible, then it feels like listening to someone above you, your superiors, would be better because those people can then go and say, hey, this person was great during this role. They're going to be great for you too. Do you, as I guess, majority host, I know you've been commentating a little bit as well. Do you find that it is often the word of mouth of your superiors that get you gigs, or do you think that the community has ever given you a green light, I suppose, and that's led to more gigs?
Um, have you not felt this whole vibe already? Like you can see the chip on my shoulder. It's so deep. Uh, no, I have not worked because of the community. If that can help anybody, I have not got further work based on community feedback. It's been based on superior feedback
Hmm.
and superiors, my execs, and they are the ones that share with other people your abilities, your capabilities, and what you overcome, what you've endured, because they know and they share that info with others. That's
Yeah.
absolutely where and how I've been able to go from one project to another. Um, and or someone will have seen my work and reach out. Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. I'm trying to think if there's ever any time the community has ever just helped in any way. I don't think so. If anything, I mean, it could maybe have helped a little, maybe padded a bit, but it hasn't been I think if I catered to the chat, I probably wouldn't work as much.
Yeah.
I
I
think
guess the question maybe is maybe better asked. Do you ever think that your superiors are listening to the chat?
I think so. I
Mm,
think they definitely take that in, but they are smart enough to know that you know exactly what the chat is, right? They're not
mm,
sitting in the crowd with them going, "Yeah, this is fucked up." um, they're they're being like, "Okay, we understand that." They're definitely taking in the feedback and weighing it. They're very smart parties to weigh that feedback. Is it a direct reflection of me as a talent or anybody as the talent and their work abilities and their capabilities? Yes, of course, if it comes down to where the community is just like, "Oh my god, fuck, we hate them and we'll never play your game again," then if there's a lot of that, then yeah, maybe they'll be like, "Okay, bye, you're out of here." um, but yeah, so I would rather trust my execs to take that feedback and weigh those options than to cater to just the feedback
yeah.
persons, I suppose.
I feel like there's dozens of Twitch chatters that now feel like their power has been reduced. And I find some pride in that actually. Because I think there are
Nice.
actually
There
tons
yeah.
of people. There are
You take
tons of
pride.
people who come into Twitch chat and they actually think that their one statement or make a post on Reddit, right? And because they made a post, there seems to be some type of like power in it. And it's like, well, you're one person who had the ability to do something that everyone else can do, and that doesn't actually make your opinion any better. But that's perhaps a tangent a bit. Now, when you are, yeah, I suppose you're constantly on the lookout for new jobs as a freelancer, as we all are. What do you find really has helped you besides doing good work and listening to your execs? Like, what have you told them directly? Like, hey, if you liked my work, like please hire me, please say other things, say nice things about me. Have you made sure to make any like personal relationships, friendships obviously, with any of these people, or is it really just do the best job that you can in one gig and then move on to the other?
I think the foundation of it all is being a good person.
Hmm.
I think that people wanna be around others, obviously, that are fun to work with. I think that those that may not be fun to work with, if they're still around, it have to be in on the team. It's because of they've honed in on some sort of niche or they're the sole person with that can do that. But being a good person is what I think then extends to just having a good time, doing your job. You of course have to do a good job as well. It's not like you just being a good person and then being crap at your job is going to work. But if you're good at your job and you're a good person, then that in itself resonates with the team. They are left with that feeling of they did, our because you're putting that's their vision you're bringing to light. And if you can make their vision, their little brainchild, like, be awesome to showcase, then of course you're gonna give that additional happy feels. And just keeping up, and with that, I don't even know how to explain it. Just I don't think you need to push it and be like, hire me for the next if you really like my work, or make sure to pass the word along. They'll do it if they feel it's good, and that could be my own little ADHD thing, because sometimes I do to a detriment. I'm just like, well, if I won't, I'm not gonna bother anybody. If I'm worth it, they'll let me know. And that's been, not a good thing. The way to think. Got to be proactive for sure. I'm trying to be more proactive. But just, I guess, show up, do the work, be a good person, and appreciate, be thankful. And I think that's the best you can really do. Move on from there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is like, I guess, to, like I said, I'm like, well, they'll reach out if they want. So I don't do those cold emails,
Mm.
which have probably, I could have done and been, more helpful for my career. But that's a personal thing that I just have a hard time doing. So if you can do those, then those are probably great. Yeah,
I,
I don't know. I hope that answered. Sorry, I'm ADHD. Like, I literally can bring this like into 5 different branches of randomness. So I apologize.
no worries. I think there's only one person I've talked to that actually has done like cold emails and hey, I think I'm good and you should hire me. And I respect the hell out of her for it. But I'm with you. I can't do that. Um, but yeah, I think just generally being a pleasant person to be around, someone who also is professional, that is absolutely some of the
Professional,
keys that
yeah.
get you invited back to a lot of these, let's say, like variety hopping. Again, if you're really focused on one esport, then there might be other things that are also important. I think always being a good person is important, but I think especially if you're going to be kind of hopping around roles, if you're not going to have that, hey, I've been here for 10 years and I'm the best of the best, you're coming in kind of new. I think that's the best thing, really. Be energetic, be excited, obviously do your homework, and then be nice to everyone. And I do mean everyone, say hi to the entire crew and all that good stuff. That really like keeps you and I guess good standing with a lot of the people who are going to be talking about you when you don't really expect them. Like I think that's kind of a surprising thing is that yes, there are people who are going to be hiring you that aren't going to be the camera people. They're not going to be the sound engineers, right? But if those people can be like, oh, hey, I love them. They were great. I feel like that does kind of add something,
No,
if you're talking
you're
about a whole
not wrong.
production crew.
Yeah, like, one I learned long ago in modeling, for example. So for runway shows, you have, because there's tons of models backstage, and we're crammed in this tiny space backstage, and we have to change. So we're all naked, and we have to like, get undressed and change because there's only like maybe 20 girls between you or models. And so you gotta whip it up, get it on. So you have people to help you. So you have dressers. And I've seen them get treated terribly, right? And with egos and out of models and what have you. I'm like, faster, whatever. And it's just like, yikes. And one client had actually brought that up and said that they no longer would be hiring so and so because of how shitty they were to their dresser.
Mm.
Yeah, because they weren't just I mean, you think about it, this person's helping you get back on the runway, and you're being a jerk
Yeah.
to somebody who's trying to help and probably not getting paid, very much, if anything. So, yeah, that's when that was the eye-opening for me where I was like, and I never was, like, mean to my dresser, but I was like, didn't realize the scope of how that extended, right, from there.
Right.
Because like you just said, you think, "Oh, they're not gonna hire me for a job." No, but that might have been the niece of the client,
Yeah.
you know?
I I think that's another thing actually is just oh well okay I kind of lost my train of thought. It's just yeah, being nice, but then realizing that everyone there is actually trying to help you. So like for instance, I think it's very easy to be kind of annoyed with production when then things are going wrong. And very rarely, if ever, is it malicious, right? They're not turning your audio off because they're like, I fucking hate that chick. Like, no, it's just an accident.
Hope
And
not.
when when you get angry, like you can get frustrated, but if you can start to I think communication's also really key, right? If you can communicate like, hey, I'm frustrated, sorry, it's just really stressful, but I know it's not your fault, like, sorry. I think that goes a long way as well. There are going to be productions where it's going to actually be really, really bad, even. I would say there's some truly atrocious productions that happen even on the big events. And if you can be chill, calm, apologetic, if you have to be, right, then that is the best way to go. And I think what helps is realizing everyone is trying to make the best product. No one is trying to sabotage each other. Then that can really help you. So next time someone's fiddling with your earpiece and they're not getting it in time, you're just gonna have to be like, they're trying to help me, like, and I do need the help.
Yeah.
I can't get this on myself. Um,
Yeah.
so that's really obviously the I guess the golden rule is important everywhere. But so for you, again, hopping around these different esports, being a host, again, what is helping you get in these other jobs? Do you ever, really take a serious look at your branding? Do you pay attention to your Twitter page and your Instagram and your YouTube? Do you kind of pick a personality and kind of run with it? I guess talk about branding if you ever think about it.
So that's a funny one because I've never been able to figure that out. What you see with me is what you get. And it's so funny because I never thought anything otherwise. 'Cause I'm being me. And I've had people say like, oh, you're actually, you're like in real life, what you are on stream or what have you. I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, how else would I be? And I've learned like people actually put on personas or even change themselves, not necessarily it's a persona, it's a they change for whatever the environment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, I'm just way too much to isolate any of it. It's just a lot at once. Like, man. So the branding aspect, I'm like, I don't know what that could be. I haven't been able to figure that out for myself.
Mm.
And I just think to put out content that's relevant to what I'm connected to or pursuing, or just even sometimes, hey, I just want to share something, and I think that's why my socials haven't grown. So don't do that. But um but yeah, but otherwise, I mean, yeah, that's one area where I wish I had it honed in. 'Cause I'm like,
Mm.
I just never grew my socials and didn't know how to. So
Do you think that's important? Some people have said
it
that's
is.
actually becoming increasingly more important.
Yeah, it
Mm.
is. I think it is because I know that I've been passed over based on my following, right? Um, and it as I was making the transition into more gaming and less modeling and acting, I remember my agents talking about. I mean, they had a whole Instagram board, and it was so weird to us as models, as if you think about it, we're the ones that grinded it all. We went through the muck and having to do free editorials over in Milan and ah. But and then these people come in and they're just like, all they have to do is have a lot of followers and pick pictures of themselves and their models. Like, what the hell? But that's our reality now. And clients would call for that. It's
Wow.
'cause again, um it's the when you make a film, you get the big names attached to a film. It's exciting for the filmmakers because then you know that you're going to grab their fans. I mean, how many times have you been like, "Oh, so and so's in that. I'm gonna watch it because they're in it." Like, yeah. Or even if it's a hype film, anyways, and you would just feel that much more like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
love this. I love that actor." Um, and it's the same. It's just kind of like, how can we get people excited about Jello? I love that influencer. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. So she's eating a Jello. I freaking love Jello. Like, so versus little old me who didn't have a following. And, it's like I'm there to like make the brand look good. And that's how it's been for the longest. But hey, if you can get some Brad Pitt of Instagram on there, then why not?
Yeah.
So that's how that evolves. And I was like, well, luckily I'm getting into gaming. Okay, bye. But
Even gaming's getting a little bit right because now we do have so many more popular streamers doing
oh yeah.
the co-streaming. That's a big thing, and then we also have streamers coming on to desk segments and even doing a little bit of commentating. And then there's
Hmm.
actually been discussions about whether that is good or not, but it's absolutely becoming, yeah, more important,
Yeah.
especially if you are going to again be kind of hopping through a lot of different scenes. Then a very easy thing to have is 40,000 Twitch, not Twitch, Twitter followers.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps for sure. Like that's why I've had to really sh push just from my talent aspect because I don't have those numbers. So,
Mm. Well, on the actually, I guess, subject of your hosting, your actual, the skill, the talent that is involved, you have a very energetic, very energetic approach to hosting. Your entire demo reel is just you being very, very hype. Now, did that come naturally? Did you, get into hosting back then? You're a little bit shy, or did you just kind of go like, whatever, just throw it all out there? And then if you did you learn to control it in any way? You found that it's a skill that you have acquired that many others could?
I have always been this way, loud and annoying. So, and that's what honestly made me successful as a model. Clients loved working with just this fun, like energy that I brought to set. Um, and funnily enough, and which is great because that's me and it'd be hard to change otherwise. I always tell people, I'm like, if I'm quiet, because, oh, they'll say, "Oh my god, it's so early. How are you so energetic?" I'm like, "Really? This is me tired." "Well," "if I'm pretty much energetic all the time except for when I'm sad. So if I'm quiet, then you know I'm sad. Otherwise, everything's good and I'm gonna be, like, always loud." I guess the decibel is just kind of where it's how tired I am, I suppose. But, as far as hosting, and when I started, because it was a new thing and learning how to do stand-ups and what have you, as with going into anything new, a little nerve-wracking at the beginning. So I would try to be in my ADHD, be like, it's got to be perfect. I need to do it right. And of course, my energy would still show through, but I'd be like nervous uh, and what have you. But through just acting and improv and such, it's like you got to fake that. Like, no, I'm being really confident right now, but I'm just hopefully you can't hear my voice shaking. You just push through it. But I'm inside, I'm just like pissing myself. But yeah, then eventually I because again, asking for the okay, is this too high? Like, do I need to bring it down a few notches? I always have to ask that. And so maybe I do. And I've learned to have to, tone it down at times. It depends. And now understanding a little bit better my ADHD as well, that not funnily enough, but now makes sense. Some of the things I could not sort out for myself in my talent work
Mm.
was based because of that. And now I am able to smooth those things out. Um, so yeah, I think that it's again going back to knowing what your direction is for you as a talent. Why are you hired? What's the vibe they want you to bring? And then I just try to meet that, and then I will, during broadcast, be like, "Okay, like that," and if they say, "Yeah," or, "No," like, "Bring it back up a little bit," or they'll be like, "Just a little bit more down." I'm like, "Alright, got you." And that goes through with, comes with experience, you just by and asking questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if they don't wanna answer you.
Right. Then I guess one of my last questions here is, what do you have for advice for everyone else looking to be a host with a little bit more energy as well? Do you suggest, like, you think acting and improv has actually really helped you? Do you think it's a confidence issue? Anything you'd want to say to the would be hosts out there?
Dude, I think improv classes would be huge and helpful. You don't need acting classes. That's not gonna help you with hosting. You need but improv so much, absolutely. If you're shy, if you're whatever, it doesn't matter. Don't be like, "I'm not good enough." That's literally how you start. That is a very good way to get out of your shell a bit because it forces you to get out of your shell. You are creating the scene. You are making things happen. So you have to be on the fly with your mind, and also perceptive of what your partner's doing and being able to bring in a cohesive storyline with that. So I want to say you can find most places have improv, right? I think that's more
Yeah,
accessible
there's
many
online
times,
as
most
well.
times.
So
You want to try to find an in-person one though. I've never done an online improv class, but in person is a whole different thing. I mean, because you put your whole body into it as well. So if you want to talk about building your confidence and camera presence and just, yeah, that being doing in-person improv classes is would be very helpful.
Actually, I have one more question. You brought up camera presence actually in the way
Mhm.
back in the beginning, saying that you came in with good camera presence. What do you find is bad camera presence? You know, tons of esports people coming in first time on camera, shy nerds playing in their video games all day. What would you say to them? Like, here's how to improve your camera presence,
Um, oh, how to improve? Um,
or what makes good camera and bad camera presence? What are the qualities
okay,
you've
what
noticed?
well, you can tell when you look uncomfortable in front of the camera, that's obviously not good camera presence, right? You when people don't like to look at the camera, right? This you're speaking to the audience. You're actually right here, but I know I need to do this to talk to you and everyone that's watching. So,
Hmm.
um, it's being able to look at the camera like this and understand that this is part of the deal. This is what you're talking, and it's fine. And get over the this is weird. That's not a person, but I'm talking, and I'm uncomfortable with that. So I'm gonna look over here and look at a real person, or I'm just not gonna look over there at all. So I'm gonna look this way and just keep looking down. If you're fidgeting, like then you're just kinda like, what are you doing? Are you talking to me or not?" Um, stuff like that. If you're basically, if you're uncomfortable, you know you're uncomfortable and it feels uncomfortable, work on that. Try to get
Hmm.
comfortable. Just stare at your camera, maybe have it off, right? Just sitting and have a conversation. Ooh, that could be a good way to do it even is have a friend on the other line and stare at your camera like you're talking to your friend, but you guys are having a conversation. Like you have it on your phone or have it on speaker or something, or headphones, and I just made that exercise up. You're welcome, everyone. ADHD brain, it's just working on the fly, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that might be a good one to just sit there and talk to your friend who you're hearing right here, but talk to them back right there and being comfortable with that and knowing that that is who you're talking to. And I think getting those reps in could probably be beneficial. Not saying that would fix everything, but it would help.
Yeah,
And yeah, good little fun task.
that's a good one. I think that's actually a very good exercise. I think there's a lot of people suggest a lot of like mirror exercises, like watching yourself in the mirror. And I feel like that's never really helped me. Um,
Don't do it. I mean, you can. That's for like if you are needing to look and see if you're doing something awkward with your face, then yeah, do that. That's
right.
what you're looking for. Actors do it because they're looking to see like, okay, is it good smolder? Do I give it like this? Or do I need to be more like this? Like, I'm not sure. Am I making a weird smirk? What does it look like when I kind of smirk? So they need to see what they're doing. So when they
Sure.
do it live, then that's the deal. But for broadcast work, all that's going to do is make you want to constantly look down at your program, and now you're not looking up here
Mm.
and that camera presence is disconnected.
All I can think of is just like, like Jack Donaghy. It's like I feel like my hands aren't doing the right thing. And he's like holding two cups. I think that's what you're supposed to practice, right?
Okay.
Because I actually legitimately I think there's camera presence, which I look this way when I'm doing this, but when I'm on talent, I do look at the camera. But the when I'm on desk, right? Because then there's, I guess, the slight difference of being like, your webcam, right, or being a studio camera is also a bit different. Because a studio camera will even like move, and you're like, do I track it? Like, what do I?
Yeah, it depends.
But it does, yeah. But that's also looking back at your VODs, which is always very suggestible, and you should probably just do all the time. But then it's also what I found really annoying is what do I do with my hands? And that also will depend on how tall you are. Like we have a studio where the desk is very comfortable for me to place my hands on very naturally, but then we have co-casters that are a foot taller. So like they're like groin is showing and they're just like, I don't
Well,
know, do I like bend? Do I like
yeah, this one's I hope people like that this one actually is a pet peeve of mine when I watch people,
Mm,
talk on broadcasts is your hands need to have a purpose.
okay.
And so if that's part of camera presence in my opinion as well, is if you're flailing, you're uncomfortable and you need to not do that. Um, like if you watch hosts on TV, for example, you will not see them flail and constantly doing this. I talk with my hands all the time, right? So that was something I always had to like work on was keeping my hands chill. But you'll notice that on TV, they're holding their hands. There's you learn through hosting like different ways to hold your hands. If you're standing, where to put it, how to hold them. Um, Never in your pockets. But anyways,
Huh.
this bothers me when you're constantly talking. It's like, yeah. So that's the thing. It's like I don't. This isn't giving the storyline any more help. Uh,
Bring in an air
so
carrier.
yeah. And your exits are in the rear, to the right, and just really everywhere. Just find a hole and leave. But the it's and by purpose, I just mean like, whoa, right? Like,
It's an
it doesn't mean
addition,
like,
not separate. I think is the separate hand arm syndrome is kind of the weird one, right? Where it just feels
maybe.
like you're flailing.
I
I
don't know. It's just like sometimes, yes, it like doing this or something isn't
sure.
necessarily like when you think, is there a purpose? Um, the purpose, I guess, would just be in it's part of the colorful of it's part of this word you're saying, like the story you're giving. It's like, so if I were just like this the whole time, like that would be weird too. You know what I mean? Sometimes it calls for that, but it depends on what you're talking about.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, the hands thing is just like, uh, or if a host will have cards, hold your cards.
Yep.
Use
Yep.
them once in a while, but don't flail. So if there's anything, please just stop flinging your arms around. I love you guys.
I wish I had cards as a desk guest. I watch the host just like have their cards, and I'm like, I wish I had
Pen.
cards.
Oh, wait, which one?
The guests, desk
As a
guests.
guest?
Yeah.
You have a pen. If anything, grab a pen and you can hold on to your pen.
Yeah, we really should bring pens. Because I always like see the news anchors, right? And they'll have like papers and a pen. And then when the camera pans away or whatever, when they're going to the next segment, they'll always pretend to like look down and shuffle their papers. And I'm like, we don't
Whenever
have
you say
that.
pretend.
I'm like, pretty sure they're pretending.
Yeah, I mean,
It depends, I suppose. But
yeah.
I have a pen like when I'm on this broadcast because I find it to be helpful. Even I never show it, but I feel like it is helpful to have something in my hands. But yeah,
Uh,
we never have anything up on the desk for our broadcasts. I feel like I should bring that up one day. But
yeah, bring that because when people go, oh, we want a clean desk, I'm like, but we're the analyst desk. We should have paper. It shouldn't be weird.
should look smart. Should look like we just wrote down notes.
Paper. Yeah, and we need to have stuff to refer to and talk about, unless you want to give us teleprompters. You know what I mean? Like, so don't be
Yeah.
afraid to advocate for yourselves in order to put the best you and product that you can bring to the brand.
Yeah, that is interesting. We very much are about the whole like there's nothing behind this desk. Don't worry about it because we even hide like the monitors right that are in there, which I think is fine, but that also means we hide our papers and our notes and hey, that's interesting. I do love this conversation by the way, just because I know recently someone on Twitter, I think it might have been Zoe, she was trying to do some like modeling, and one thing
Oh,
she said was like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And then there was this whole like tweet chain of all these like models helping her, being like, "This is
oh
what you're supposed
wow.
to do." And I was like, I never really thought about that because when you take pictures with family, it's like over shoulders or in your hoodie pile, like it's very casual. But then if you're forced to have your hands somewhere, you're just like
It's an art.
pose.
Yep, it's a lot. Yep, yep, yep.
So it's actually
What
something to work on. It's so weird.
one tip I can give you if you're taking any photos with you putting your hands in your pockets, don't push your hands down. You actually have to hover your hands. Keep your thumbs out so we know you have hands, and rest them on the garment, or hold them. You might have to hold them in the air. It's gonna feel weird, but it looks good. You're welcome. Don't
Oh.
push down because then it's like makes creases. It does weird things, and
Right. I'm
posture gets
gonna
weird.
think about this every time I walk past a photo of someone modeling clothes.
Or you just make it like, oh, stroke yourself. Just kidding. Don't do that. Um,
Just like a family photo, and you're just like,
yeah, right. Everyone's like, yeah, and you're all like, what is Bobby
Uh,
doing?
that's amazing. It's also
Mm,
amazing for our audio listeners. Definitely know what we're doing.
mhm.
All right. Well, that should be our hour roughly. Thank you very much for stopping by and chatting with me. It was a lot of fun. Where are you? What are your next gigs? I know you're doing, I guess, kind of a podcast of your own, a little bit, or show, or whatever you want to call it. So just shout out everywhere that you're going to be.
Oh yeah. So every Wednesdays right now, I'm doing a show that I call the ADHDs, or to normalize the conversation behind ADHD. You heard me talk about it throughout this broadcast in itself. And that's happening every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on Twitter Spaces. So you'll get that if you follow either me or the guests. So you can follow me at Twitter, twitter.com/LucyMae Games. That's the only one that's different. Hopefully we'll get that changed soon. But everything else, I am Lucy May on Twitch, on Instagram, YouTube. I don't really post there. TikTok. I am Lucy May. And yeah, some fun stuff coming up next month. It hasn't been announced yet, but really excited for that. And yeah, the future of gaming, and hope that things keep rolling through into the next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone listening, as well as the Patreon supporters. Thank you to my co producer, Shayne, as well as to the Patreon supporters, putting that extra little bit. Nick, Vinny, Steven, E.T., and Ravi. Thank you guys very much. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, it is patreon.com/zombiegrub. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here for the next episode. Bye, guys.